You think wedding drama ends at the altar? Think again. These aren't love stories, they're betrayals, humiliations, and savage comebacks. From a cousin who stole an identity to bridesmaids with a sick sense of humor, this is ultimate wedding revenge. You're about to see why some people should never be invited. Let's begin.
You know what's crazy? Watching your cousin walk down the aisle in a wedding dress. Wearing your name. Not like your name, your actual legal name. On every document. On every credit card. On every part of the dream life she built. With your identity. She thought she won. Thought I'd never catch her. Never fight back. Never show up. But the thing about stealing from family, especially me, is that I don't show up to fight. I show up to end it. Quietly. Legally. And perfectly. I wasn't sitting in the pews as a guest. I wasn't standing at the back crying. I was standing near the exit, next to 2 uniformed police officers. Waiting. Watching. Timing it down to the second. Because the moment they asked, "Does anyone object?" Guess what? I did. I stepped forward, held up my proof, and watched the entire room freeze. Her new husband's face, her parents, her friends, all staring at me like a ghost. But I wasn't a ghost. I was the real me, the only me. And my cousin, the fake bride, was about to walk out of this wedding, straight into handcuffs, because she stole my identity to build her fantasy life. And I stole her freedom to end it. My name's Danielle. Average in the best way. Solid job working in healthcare admin. Decent little apartment. Good credit score I built from scratch. Nothing flashy, but everything I had, I earned it. Every dollar. Every opportunity. Every piece of peace. Because I wasn't born lucky. I was born careful. Strategic. Responsible. Maybe that's why Taylor, my cousin, always thought I was easy to steal from. Because people like her, they mistake quiet for weak. Mistake humble for stupid. Big mistake. Huge. Taylor and I grew up like sisters. Family BBQs. Grandma's house every summer. Sharing secrets late at night under blankets. She was the loud one. The fun one. The effortlessly cool one who got away with everything. And me. I was the good one. The helper. The one people vented to but never envied. Until I found out Taylor envied me more than anyone. Not for my clothes. Not for my friends. Not even for my life. She envied my name. My credit. My stability. Things I didn't even realize she was watching. Studying. Plotting to steal. It started small. A fraud alert here. A weird charge there. But the deeper I looked, the uglier it got. Credit cards. Loans. Car lease. Even an apartment. All in my name. All using my information. All tied back to one person. Taylor. My blood. My family. My thief. And when I found out she was about to have the wedding of her dreams, paid for in part with money from the identity she stole, that's when I knew. This wasn't about calling her out. This wasn't about a confrontation. This was about ending her carefully crafted fantasy life. Right at the altar. Publicly. Legally. And perfectly. It's wild looking back now. Thinking about how peaceful my life was before Taylor stole it right out from under me. Simple. Quiet. Mine. And that was enough. I worked hard for what I had. I wasn't rich. But I was stable. Had my little routines. Meal prepped on Sundays. Budgeted every paycheck down to the penny. Used my tax refund for smart stuff. Paying down debt, boosting my savings, little weekend getaways. Not Instagram-worthy flexes. Not designer bags. Just normal. Just safe. Taylor always joked that I was boring. Girl, you save money like an 80-year-old grandma. Live a little, swipe the card. But me? I liked knowing my bills were paid. That my credit was solid. That if I wanted to treat myself, I could, because I planned for it. Meanwhile, Taylor's life? A walking disaster. Flashy on the outside, broke underneath. Always in some new situationship. Always in somebody else's drama. Always between jobs, but somehow always posting from brunch with a mimosa in hand. She loved to tease me about my quiet life. Must be nice not to worry about anything. Funny. Turns out she was worrying about plenty. How to take what I had, without doing the work, without building it herself. And I'll be real with you. I never saw it coming. This was family. The same girl who stood beside me at every family reunion. Who called me first when she broke up with her loser ex. Who cried in my lap when her mom got sick. We were cousins. We were supposed to be safe. Protected. But while I was working late nights and eating frozen burritos to save for a rainy day, Taylor was studying my life like a blueprint. planning every move like I was her next hustle. And by the time I realized what she'd done, it was too late. My name? Compromised. My credit? Hijacked. My peace? Gone. But what Taylor forgot was that everything she stole came with a paper trail. And me, I'm real good at following trails, especially when they lead straight to someone's wedding. The first red flag? It didn't scream. It whispered. Soft. Subtle. Like the beginning of an itch you can't scratch. It started with a letter. One of those bland, boring pieces of mail you almost throw away without reading. Except this one had my name on it. Danielle Morris. My exact spelling. But it wasn't from any bank I used. It was a pre-approval for a luxury credit card. Congratulations, it said. You've been pre-qualified for an exclusive rewards membership. Weird. I never applied for that. I didn't even live in the city it was mailed from. That was flag number 1. Flag number 2. A random call from a car dealership. Hi, this is just a courtesy call confirming your upcoming lease payment. Lease? I didn't have a lease. I drove a 10-year-old Honda I paid off in full. When I told them they had the wrong person, the guy double-checked the account. Danielle Morris. Last 4 of your social is XXXX? My stomach dropped. Dead silence. That was me. But it wasn't my car. Not my life. Not my problem. Except now. It was. Flag number 3? A weird email from an apartment complex in a city I hadn't even visited. Thank you for your application, Danielle. We just need your most recent pay stub to finalize the rental. Pay stub. Rentals. Luxury apartments. Under my name. Somewhere I'd never set foot. I froze. Completely still. And that's when the pieces started snapping together. Not slowly. Fast. Aggressive. Terrifying. This wasn't some random scammer from halfway across the world. This was someone who knew me. Had my info. Had access. And when I checked my credit report that night, it felt like drowning. 4 new credit cards. A car lease. A whole apartment rental. In someone else's city. Under my name. And the longer I stared at the charges, the travel, the purchases, the timeline, the clearer it became. This wasn't just identity theft. This was Taylor. My cousin. My blood. My thief. And I was about to flip her little fantasy world upside down. Quietly. Legally. And with maximum precision. Once I saw my credit report, there was no going back. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an error. This was a blueprint. Taylor hadn't just dipped her toe into my life. She cannonballed into it. Built a whole fake existence on top of my name. And honestly, she was bold. Sloppy. Arrogant. Like she never expected me to look. Never thought I'd fight. Big mistake. I started pulling every record I could get my hands on. Bank alerts. Credit inquiries. Rental agreements. Any trace of her activity tied to me. And every document told me the same story. Taylor had been busy. Really busy. Luxury apartment in downtown Chicago. Range Rover lease. A credit card swiped at all her favorite little spots. High-end brunches, designer stores, weekend spa trips. Living like a reality TV star. On my credit. With my name. And then I saw the worst thing. A bridal registry. Wedding dress appointments. Venue deposits. A full-on wedding planned. Funded, in part, with accounts opened in my name. Taylor wasn't just stealing from me. She was building her dream wedding on the back of my identity. Her happily ever after? Sponsored by me. That's when the hurt left. That's when the anger burned off. And all that was left? Silence. Focus. Clarity. Because you know what Taylor forgot? She forgot I'm patient. I'm smart. And I document everything. I wasn't going to confront her at a family barbecue. Wasn't going to call her crying. Wasn't going to curse her out over text. That's loud revenge. Messy revenge. Me. I play long game. Quiet game. Legal game. So while she was planning her big day, I was building my case. Filing police reports. Talking to a lawyer. Setting everything up behind the scenes. And when her wedding day finally arrived, oh, she was going to have her moment. Walking down the aisle. Smiling like the world was perfect. Right before it collapsed beneath her feet. Because the thing about stealing someone's identity? You better hope they don't take theirs back. Publicly. Permanently. And with an audience. You know what made this worse? Taylor didn't act alone. Oh no. Snakes travel in packs. Fake friends always attract other fake friends. And Taylor? She was surrounded by them. Girls who cheered her on. Enabled her. Helped her keep the lie going. People I knew. People I'd grown up with. People who smiled in my face at family events. While knowing full well she was out here living as me. It started when I went full investigator mode and scrolled through Taylor's social media. Old photos I'd been tagged in? Deleted. New photos? Glowing. Flawless. Fake. Her new life was spotless. Luxury bags. Girls' trips. Spa days. Wedding prep posts like her life was funded by manifestation and good vibes. Nope. Funded by fraud. My good credit. My stolen identity. And then I saw them. Mutual friends commenting under her posts. Yes, queen, get it. Manifested this life. You deserve everything. Funny. Deserve? With my social security number? Hard to feel cute when you're essentially a character in somebody else's scam story. But the worst was seeing one name pop up again and again. Brittany. Our mutual cousin. Family. Someone I'd trusted. Turns out, Brittany wasn't clueless. She'd been helping Taylor look legit. Letting her use her address for mail. Signing off on fake employment letters for rental applications. Covering for her when little things didn't add up. That stung. Not because I needed Brittany's loyalty, but because watching people enable betrayal is almost worse than the betrayal itself. That's when it hit me. Taylor wasn't just stealing from me. She was building a whole fake empire, with helpers, with cover stories, with enablers. But there's one thing all scammers forget. Paper trails don't lie. Receipts don't fade. And bank statements? Bank statements are forever. She didn't know it yet, but every person who played a part in this was about to watch her fall. Hard. Publicly. Legally. Embarrassingly. And me. I wasn't going to throw a single punch. I wasn't going to raise my voice. I was just going to show up. With proof. And a front row seat to the end of her fantasy. Everybody has a breaking point. Mine came in the form of a wedding invitation. Hand-delivered. Addressed to Danielle Morris. The irony nearly made me laugh. Taylor was bold. Not only did she steal my identity, she was about to walk down the aisle under my name, in front of our entire family. Like I didn't exist. Like I wouldn't notice. Like I wouldn't fight. Big mistake. Huge. Because that wasn't just identity theft anymore. That was war. But not the messy, dramatic war Taylor was used to. No screaming. No social media rants. No family group chat explosions. Nah, that wasn't my style. If Taylor wanted to play this publicly, perfect. Because I was about to end her story with an audience. Step 1. Lawyer up. My attorney nearly fell out of her chair when she saw the case file I'd built. Full identity theft. Wire fraud. Credit card fraud. Rental fraud. The list was impressive. And criminal. Step 2. Police report filed. Official. Documented. Quiet. Step 3. Coordinate with the local police near her wedding venue. That part. Chef's kiss. Turns out, wedding venues really hate when their events turn into crime scenes. But the police? Oh, they were more than happy to help once they saw my file. Especially since Taylor had signed contracts, rental agreements, and her marriage license. All under stolen identity information. My information. Step 4? Wait. Wait for her to smile her fake little princess smile. Wait for her to walk down that aisle, thinking she won. Thinking nobody was coming for her. Thinking I was still sitting at home, powerless. What she didn't know. I wasn't sitting at home. I was standing near the exit. Flanked by 2 officers. Holding my file of evidence. Ready. Calm. Focused. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud. It's legal. It's silent. It's watching someone walk straight into their own downfall. While you stand back and watch it all burn. There's a special kind of peace that hits when you know you've won. When you've done the work, collected the proof, built the case, and all you have to do is wait. That was me, standing outside that wedding venue. Calm, cool, patient. Taylor had no idea. No clue that while she was sipping mimosas in her bridal suite, taking selfies and basking in fake compliments, I was 20 feet away, holding the receipt folder that would ruin her entire life. Legally. Permanently. Without me raising my voice once. The officer next to me looked at my file like he'd seen 1,000 cases. But none this personal. You ready? He asked. I didn't even hesitate. Absolutely. See, Taylor wasn't scared of me. Why would she be? I was the good cousin. The quiet one. The boring one. The safe one. The one who saved money instead of spending it. The one she never thought would fight back. She didn't realize that quiet people? We don't explode. We execute. As I stood there, I could hear the wedding music start. Soft. Romantic. Fake. The wedding coordinator was lining people up. Guests were laughing, taking their seats, completely unaware of what was about to happen. completely unaware that this fairy tale was built on stolen credit and lies. On my name, my life. And now, that perfect little world she built was seconds from collapsing. Funny thing is, I wasn't even angry anymore. The rage had burned off weeks ago. All that was left was focus. And maybe deep down, satisfaction. Because this wasn't petty revenge. This wasn't for show. This was justice. Clean, quiet, and irreversible. She thought she won. She thought I'd stay silent. She thought this was her big day. But the thing about stealing someone's life? Eventually, they come back for it. And when they do, it's not loud. It's not messy. It's just final. The music swelled. Taylor's moment had arrived. All eyes were on her. She walked down the aisle like a queen, fake, smiling, absolutely dripping in confidence. Completely clueless. Her hair was perfect. Her dress was stunning. Her guests were beaming. This was her big win. Her perfect day. But me? I was standing quietly in the back. Not as a guest. Not as family. As the real Danielle Morris. The real name she stole. And standing next to me? 2 police officers, waiting for my signal. The minister did his whole little speech. People sniffled. Taylor pretended to get emotional, dabbing at the corners of her eyes like she was starring in some romantic movie. Pathetic. Then it came. The moment I'd been waiting for. If anyone here has reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony. Pause. Silence. Everyone in the room smiling, assuming nothing would happen. And that's when I stepped forward, heels clicking against the floor like a countdown clock. Heads turned, confused whispers, gasps. Taylor's face twisted in slow motion from happy to confused to absolutely terrified. I do. That's all I said. Simple. Calm. Final. The room froze. Her fiancé looked between me and her like he was watching a glitch in real life. Who is that?" he asked. And I looked him dead in the eye. "I'm Danielle Morris." Gasps everywhere. Murmurs ripping through the crowd. "Taylor?" She looked like she might pass out. And then, Officer Number 1 stepped forward. Calm. Professional. "Taylor Mitchell, you're under arrest for multiple counts of identity theft, wire fraud, and credit card fraud." Pins could have dropped. Her mom gasped. Her dad sat down hard like the wind had been knocked out of him. Her friends? Dead silent. Because this wasn't messy. This wasn't loud. This wasn't revenge. This was justice. Delivered cold. Delivered publicly. Delivered perfectly. And me? I just stood there, watching her fantasy world crumble into dust. No yelling. No threats. Just proof. Paperwork. Law enforcement. And the truth. Right there in the middle of her dream wedding. Chaos. That's the only way to describe what happened next. 1 second Taylor was the star of the show. The next, she was in handcuffs. In a wedding dress. In front of everyone who thought they knew her. Her new husband? Frozen. Eyes wide. Staring at her like she was a stranger. Which honestly, she was. Everything about Taylor was fake. The venue. The dress. The registry. The life. Built on lies. Built on my name. Built on stolen credit and fake paperwork. The police read her rights calmly, like this was just another day at the office. Taylor? Not so calm. She kept stammering. "Wait. This is a misunderstanding. Danielle, please, we can talk about this." Talk. There was nothing left to say. Everything she ever wanted? Gone. Publicly. Legally. Exactly how it needed to happen. The guests? Stunned. Phones out. Whispers everywhere. Nobody could believe it. Some people gasped. Some shook their heads. Others looked straight at me like I was some avenging angel walking straight out of a Netflix drama. And honestly, I didn't mind the comparison. Brittany was there too, frozen pale, realizing that if Taylor went down, her name might not be far behind. That's what happens when you co-sign someone else's crimes. You get to sit in the splash zone when the ship sinks. And Taylor's ship was going down fast. As the officers led her toward the exit, Taylor turned back one last time. Eyes wide. Desperate. "Danielle. Please." And me. I just stood there. Perfectly calm. Perfectly still. Because sometimes the loudest statement you can make is silence. She wasn't owed forgiveness. She wasn't owed closure. She wasn't owed anything. All she was left with? Handcuffs. A record. And the memory of every single person she cared about. Watching her lose everything she stole. At her own wedding. In the dress she wore like armor. But armor doesn't help you when the truth comes walking through the door. Taylor's wedding didn't make it to the reception. There was no first dance. No cake cutting. No happily ever after send-off. There was just the sound of police cars pulling away. And a room full of people staring at the empty aisle like they just witnessed a car crash. Because they did. Taylor's entire fantasy life? Totaled. Brittany slipped out of that venue so fast it was almost impressive. Funny how the loudest people in the group chat go dead silent when real life shows up. The rest of the guests didn't even know what to do. A few people tried to approach me. Are you okay? Did that really happen? Is she really? I just smiled politely. Nodded. Kept it simple. Yeah, she stole my identity. She got caught. That's all there is to it. Because that was the truth. Clean. Sharp. Non-negotiable. In the weeks after, Taylor's story spread like wildfire. Nobody had sympathy. Not after seeing the receipts. Not after realizing she didn't just lie to me. She lied to everyone. Her fiancé? Filed for annulment before she even made bail. That fancy apartment? Gone. The Range Rover? Repossessed. Those ride-or-die friends? Blocked her faster than a spam call. Me? I got my credit restored. It took time. Work. Patience. But every fraudulent account? Closed. Every charge? Removed. My name? Mine again. Better than new. Because now, it came with a reputation. One that said, don't play with me. Not because I'll scream. Not because I'll get messy. But because I'll stay calm. Silent. Focused. And handle my business the right way. I didn't lose sleep over Taylor. Didn't stalk her socials. Didn't send her any parting messages. Her consequences were loud enough without me adding to them. All I did, went back to living my life. My real life. The one I built. The one I protected. The one nobody gets to steal again. People always say blood is thicker than water. But nobody ever talks about how easy it is for family to betray you. Taylor thought sharing DNA made me soft. Made me stupid. Made me safe to steal from. But I'm not soft. I'm smart. I'm patient. And I don't fight dirty. I fight quietly. Legally. Perfectly. She stole my name. My credit. My peace. Built a whole life pretending to be me. Until the real me showed up. Not screaming. Not begging. Just calm. Prepared. Unbothered. And standing there at the back of her wedding? Watching her in a white dress. Walking herself straight into handcuffs? Yeah, that was my closure. Taylor didn't just lose her wedding that day. She lost her future. Her freedom. Her little Instagram perfect scam life. All gone. All because she forgot one very important thing. If you steal from someone smart enough to build their own life, be prepared for them to take it back. Publicly. Permanently. Without raising their voice. As for me, I didn't lose anything. I got my name back. My peace back. My life back. And every time I check my mail now, every time I swipe my card, every time I wake up in a house I paid for, I smile. Because this life, this credit, this name, is 100% mine. And Taylor? She can keep the memories. They're the only thing she has left.
Thanks so much for watching. If you love a good revenge story, or if you've ever dreamed of getting the last word without saying much at all, you're in the right place. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new savage ending. Because around here, karma always hits different.
I found out the wedding was a bet, so I made it a game he couldn't win. There's this moment right before you walk down the aisle, where everything goes quiet. Or at least it's supposed to. Guests are seated. Music is playing. And for most brides, that moment feels magical. But for me, it felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. Because just 15 minutes before that aisle walk, before the vows and the pictures and the perfect little life everyone thought we were about to start, I learned the truth. He bet on me. My fiancé. The man waiting for me at the end of that aisle. He had made a literal bet with his friends that he could get me to say yes. Win me over. Marry me. Collect his prize. I guess I was the game. I guess I was the joke. But the thing about playing games with someone like me, you should probably know what you're up against. Because I'm not the girl you fool and walk away from clean. Not a chance. By the time this wedding was over, he wasn't the one cashing in. He was about to lose more than he could ever imagine. Because I wasn't just walking down that aisle. I was walking straight into the final round of a game he thought he was winning. Until I changed the rules. My name is Brielle. And I was never the girl who believed love was supposed to be complicated. Messy maybe, but not complicated. I grew up in one of those rare families where love was steady. My parents were the kind of couple that still held hands in the grocery store. They slow danced barefoot in the kitchen when their song came on. They laughed easily, the kind of laughter that only comes from years of really liking each other. So I guess I went into life, and into love, thinking that's what I'd find too. Something simple, something honest, something safe. When I met Jason, it felt like I had. He didn't come crashing into my world like some movie scene. He just showed up, a friend of a friend at a charity event. The kind of man who knew how to listen, really listen, while everyone else in the room was busy talking about themselves. We talked all night, about everything and nothing. Family, travel, my job, his ridiculous collection of bad dad jokes that made me roll my eyes and laugh anyway. And when he asked if he could take me to dinner sometime, it felt easy to say yes. Being with him was easy. At least, it was supposed to be. He was thoughtful in all the right ways. Flowers for no reason. Texts just to check in. Remembering little things I mentioned once, like how I couldn't start my day without coffee from this tiny local shop down the street. He was charming. Not in the loud, over-the-top way that some men use to cover bad intentions, but in that quiet, steady way that made me believe he was genuine. It didn't feel like a game. It felt real. And when he proposed, on a beach at sunset, just us and the sound of the waves, I didn't hesitate. I said yes because I believed in him. In us. I believed I was saying yes to forever. But forever? Turns out forever looks a little different when the person standing in front of you isn't playing for keeps. They're just playing. Back then, I would have told anyone who asked that I was one of the lucky ones. Not just because I was engaged, but because it felt like I had somehow landed the kind of love people spent their lives hoping to find. There was an ease to it, a softness in the way Jason moved through my world. He didn't force his way in, didn't come rushing through like some dramatic whirlwind. He simply arrived and settled into the quiet rhythms of my life like he'd always belonged there. Even the mundane things became better when he was around. Grocery shopping on Sunday afternoons. Walking my dog in the evenings after work. Folding laundry while we argued playfully over which movie to watch. He made all of it feel lighter. He showed up consistently. Remembered the way I took my coffee. Texted good morning before I'd even opened my eyes. Helped me assemble IKEA furniture with a patience I still don't understand. And when I talked about things that mattered to me, whether it was the wedding or a bad day at work, he actually listened. That's what I remember most now, looking back. How deeply I believed he was listening. Planning the wedding with him only added to the illusion. He let me take the lead, but not in a way that felt dismissive. He showed up to appointments. Offered input when I asked. Held my hand when I second-guessed myself. Told everyone I was handling it all with grace. My friends would comment on how lucky I was. My mom would smile in that quiet, relieved way, like she believed I was in good hands. And I did too. I didn't just love Jason. I trusted him. Completely. I look back now not with shame, but with the kind of clarity that only comes after a storm. Because the truth is, everything about our relationship felt real. Until the moment I learned it wasn't. And once that truth surfaced, there was no going back. Because nothing cuts deeper than realizing the love you gave so freely was never part of someone else's plan. It was just a wager. Looking back, I realized the signs were there long before I connected the dots. They always are. That's the thing about betrayal. It rarely kicks down the door. It creeps in through the smallest cracks. And for me, it started with little things. Moments that, at the time, felt harmless. Easy to brush off. Easy to explain away. There was the night we were out with Jason's friends. The same core group of guys I'd come to know over the past year. They were funny, loud, a little rough around the edges, but mostly just guys being guys. We were at this casual bar downtown, the kind of place with sticky tables and too loud music. One of them, Mark, had a little too much to drink and started teasing Jason about how fast we'd gotten engaged. Guess you won the bet, huh? Mark laughed, nudging him hard enough to slosh beer onto the table. Jason froze for a second. It was quick, barely noticeable. Then he laughed too, shaking his head like Mark was just being ridiculous. You know she's way out of my league, right? It was never a fair bet. Everyone laughed along. And me. I laughed too. Because I didn't know. I didn't know there was truth sitting quietly inside that joke. There were other moments too. Conversations that would suddenly stop when I walked into the room. Jason glancing too quickly between his friends like he was checking for something unspoken. Inside jokes I wasn't part of. Not because I wasn't close with them, but because I wasn't supposed to hear the setup. None of it felt threatening at the time. Just weird. Just enough to make me tilt my head for a second, and then shake it off. Because I trusted him. I trusted us. That's what real love does to you. It makes you slow to assume the worst. even when the worst is sitting right there, laughing along, pretending to love you back. I didn't know it yet, but every one of those little moments, they were clues, proof that while I was planning forever, someone else was planning their win. The night I found out the truth didn't start any differently than 100 other nights before it. We were at Jason's best friend's house, a casual little get-together before the wedding. Nothing fancy. Pizza boxes on the counter, cheap beer in the fridge, and a bunch of people crammed into a living room, talking too loud over a game on TV. I wasn't even supposed to be there at first. Jason had told me it was just guys being guys, wedding week tradition or whatever excuse they'd come up with to make it sound harmless. But plans shifted. One of the girlfriends invited me without realizing I'd been told it was a guys-only thing. And so there I was, sitting in the corner of a room I was never supposed to be in, when everything changed. They didn't notice me right away. Jason had gone to grab me a drink, and I was sitting there half scrolling my phone, half listening when I heard it. Clear as day. I still can't believe he pulled it off, one of them said, laughing in that low, impressed way guys do when someone pulls a fast one. Yeah, another added. A whole year of pretending to be Prince Charming just to win a bet. That man deserves a trophy. My stomach dropped. It's strange, the way your body knows something before your mind can catch up. The room felt colder, smaller, like I'd fallen out of my own life and landed somewhere I didn't recognize. Jason came back a few seconds later, smiling, casual, like he hadn't just built our entire relationship on a lie. And in that moment, sitting there with a plastic cup of cheap beer in my hand, I realized two things at the exact same time. First, they didn't even feel bad. And second, neither did I. Because whatever game they thought they'd been playing, they'd just invited me to the table. And what they didn't know, what Jason would soon learn the hard way, was that I don't lose quietly. Not when the stakes are me. Not when the prize was supposed to be my life. I didn't confront him that night. That surprises people when I tell this story. But honestly, what was I going to say? Stand up in the middle of his friend's living room? Scream and cry while they laughed behind their beers? Give them another story to pass around when I was gone? No. Jason thought I was emotional. Thought I was romantic. Thought I was soft. And maybe I had been. But not anymore. Not after hearing what I heard. I played it cool. Stayed through the rest of the night. Smiled at the right moments. Held Jason's hand when we left like I wasn't counting down the seconds until I could be alone. But inside, everything about me had gone still. Focused. Because I knew exactly what I needed to do. The next morning, while Jason was out on some last-minute wedding errand, I went to work. Quietly. Efficiently. I started printing things. Receipts. Emails. Screenshots of texts that didn't sit right before, but now made perfect, ugly sense. I pulled our vendor contracts. Checked whose names were on what. Calculated exactly how much of this wedding was paid for by me. And how much was hanging on the balance of appearances. And I called my best friend. Not to cry, but to strategize. Because I wasn't walking away empty-handed. Not emotionally. Not financially. Not publicly. By that afternoon, I'd spoken to my parents too. Told them everything. Their reaction was what I expected, shock layered with heartbreak. But underneath all that, pride. Because I wasn't folding. I wasn't falling apart. I was planning. And by the time the rehearsal dinner rolled around, I had my plan in place. Jason thought he was walking me down the aisle into a perfect little future. A future he thought he'd won like some twisted prize. But me? I was walking straight into my own final move. Not to marry him. Not to keep the peace. But to remind him, and every single person sitting there watching, that I was never the fool in this story. He was. The rehearsal dinner felt almost surreal. Jason was in rare form, charming, confident, holding court like a man who had already won. He hugged my parents like they were his own, toasted me like he couldn't believe his luck. And every time he looked my way, he smiled like he was certain I had no idea. That was the part that sat with me the most. That smug, quiet certainty. Because men like Jason don't expect the girl they bet against to outplay them. They expect her to cry, to beg, to disappear quietly so they can tell their version of the story without interruption. But me, I had no intention of disappearing. I sat through dinner calm, collected, running through my plan like clockwork. My parents knew. My best friend knew. The vendor calls had been made. Certain payments were already paused. Certain bookings quietly canceled. There was only one thing left to do. Finish the show. Give him every chance to think this was going to end exactly the way he planned. The next morning, wedding day, I woke early. got dressed, let the hair and makeup team do their thing, took pictures like every other bride. And all the while, I could feel it building. Not panic, not sadness, just power. A kind of power I'd never felt before. Because everything Jason thought he'd stolen from me, every bit of control, every ounce of dignity, every dream of what this day was supposed to be, I was taking back. Quietly. Perfectly. On my terms. As the music started and my cue arrived, I stood just out of sight, waiting to walk down the aisle. Most brides are nervous in that moment. Not me. I was calm, focused, ready. Because in a few minutes, Jason's game was about to end. And I wasn't walking toward a man waiting to love me forever. I was walking straight toward a lesson he'd never forget. Walking down that aisle felt nothing like I thought it would. I'd always pictured that moment growing up. The music, the faces of people I loved smiling back at me, the man waiting for me at the other end, steady and certain. And here I was. Except this wasn't a love story anymore. This was closure. This was the final move. I remember feeling oddly steady, like my heart had already done its breaking long before I stepped into that space. Whatever sadness might have been there once had been replaced by something sharper. Clearer. The kind of clarity that comes when the person you trusted most shows you exactly who they are. Jason stood at the front, looking every bit like the picture-perfect groom. Smiling like this was just another page in the story he thought he controlled. And for a second, standing there, looking at him surrounded by flowers and candlelight, I thought, he really believes he's won. That was the last thought I needed to let go of any hesitation. The officiant welcomed everyone, his voice warm, his words floating through the space like they belonged at a celebration. But this wasn't a celebration anymore. Not for me. Not for Jason. Not for the woman I had fought so hard to be. And when the moment came, the pause before the vows, I didn't hesitate. I turned to Jason, calm as ever, and said, "Actually, there's something I need to say before we go any further." That's when I saw it, that tiny flicker in his eyes. Doubt. Fear. The smallest crack in all his confidence. And I knew then what I'd known since the night of that party. This wasn't my story ending. This was his. As I stood there looking out at that sea of faces, family, friends, people who showed up believing they were about to watch the beginning of something beautiful, I felt strangely calm. I didn't feel small. I didn't feel humiliated. I felt ready. Jason hadn't moved beside me. Not a step. And for a man who always seemed to have something slick and charming to say, his silence spoke volumes. He hadn't planned for this version of me. The one who wasn't crying. The one who wasn't begging. The one who knew exactly what I was doing. I looked out at the guests, taking my time. I wasn't in a rush to speak. I wasn't in a rush for anything. When I finally did, my voice was steady. "I want to thank everyone for being here today," I said. "I know how much love and effort it takes to show up for someone else's joy." There were nods, a few polite smiles. "But because I respect you, all of you, I think it's only fair that you know the truth about what today really is." I felt Jason shift beside me. Barely. Just enough to know he was catching up. Far too late. And then simply I told them. I told them about the night I overheard everything. About the bet. About how the man standing next to me didn't propose because he loved me. Not in the way I deserved. Not in the way anyone should. He did it to win. To brag. To claim something he thought would make him look good in front of people who treated love like a bar game. The reaction from the crowd wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. It was sharper than that. You could feel it, the way people sat up straighter, the way their faces changed. The way every glance toward Jason turned from admiration to disappointment. And in that moment, he wasn't charming anymore. He wasn't clever. He wasn't a man about to get married. He was just small. He turned to me then, tried to speak. But whatever words he thought might save him didn't matter. I looked him in the eye. "This isn't a game," I said quietly. "And you don't win." Then I turned to the room, to the people who mattered, and gave them the line I'd been holding on to from the second I learned the truth. "There won't be a wedding today." And then I left. Calm. Unbothered. Certain. Because I wasn't walking away in defeat. I was walking away as the only person in that room who never needed to play a game to win. In the days that followed, people kept asking me how I stayed so calm. How I stood there in front of everyone I knew and told the truth without crying, without screaming, without throwing something across the room. And the answer was simple. By the time I spoke those words, I had already grieved the relationship. I had already buried the version of Jason I thought I loved. What was left wasn't heartbreak, it was truth. And telling the truth, that felt like peace. I didn't go on social media right away. I didn't feel the need to explain myself to the world. The people who mattered were already in that room when I said everything that needed to be said. There was no damage control to run, no narrative to reclaim, because when someone builds a relationship on a lie, they lose the right to control the ending. Jason tried to reach out a few times after. A voicemail here, a long-winded email there. Messages passed through mutual friends, some apologetic, some defensive, and one that honestly read like he still thought there was a chance to talk things out. But I never answered. Not once. I didn't need to. There was nothing left to salvage. No confusion. No misunderstanding. He played a game, and I let him finish it, publicly, cleanly, with everyone watching. That was the only conversation we were ever going to have. I spent the next few weeks wrapping up vendor calls, returning unopened gifts, and taking long walks just to remind myself that the world was still turning. And it was. Quieter, maybe, but clearer, lighter. People reached out, some with shock, others with support. But what surprised me most was how many women told me they wished they'd done the same. That they'd walked away when they first saw the signs. That they'd trusted their gut instead of waiting to be broken down piece by piece. And that's when I realized something. I hadn't just walked away from Jason. I'd stepped into something stronger. Something smarter. Something that sounded a lot like my own voice. Finally being heard. The morning after the non-wedding was quiet. There was no dramatic sobbing, no chaotic calls to cancel flights or return dresses. The storm had already passed, and in its place was something I hadn't felt in weeks, stillness. I sat by the window in my apartment, wrapped in one of my dad's old sweatshirts, holding a mug of coffee that had gone lukewarm by the time I realized I hadn't taken a sip. Outside, the city moved on like nothing had happened. People walked their dogs, buses hissed past in the early sun, and somewhere in the distance, someone was laughing. The world hadn't ended. It hadn't even paused. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself breathe. I didn't feel regret. I didn't even feel heartbreak anymore. What I felt was something quieter, stronger. Like I'd just stepped out of a house that had been burning down behind me for months. Only I hadn't noticed the flames until they were licking at my feet. Now I was outside. And safe. Later that afternoon, I posted a photo, not of a ringless hand or a bridal bouquet tossed into the trash, but of the sunlight pouring through my kitchen and the coffee I finally remembered to drink. No long caption, just a few simple words. Peace looks good on me. I hadn't expected a reaction. But the comments came quickly, messages from friends, from family, even from acquaintances I barely knew. Not with questions or pity, but with quiet support. Affirmation. A kind of collective nod from people who understood that silence can sometimes say more than 1,000 screaming explanations. As for Jason, I heard from him once. A short, rambling voicemail that started with denial and ended in something that might have passed for an apology, if it hadn't come from the same voice that had spent a year turning me into a punchline. I didn't call him back. There was no version of that conversation that would give me more than I already had. He'd told his story, and now I had told mine. Not with bitterness, not with vengeance, just with truth. And that was enough. In the weeks that followed, I didn't feel like a woman who'd been left at the altar. Mostly because that's not what happened. I left him. On purpose. And that decision, that agency, changed everything. There was no unraveling of my life. No dramatic collapse into grief. Instead, I found myself settling into the smallest parts of my world. Pieces I hadn't realized I'd been missing while I was busy planning a wedding with someone who never deserved me in the first place. I remember walking into my favorite cafe 2 days later. The same cafe where Jason and I used to meet after work. The barista smiled at me in that warm, familiar way and asked how the wedding went, clearly unaware of what had happened. For half a second, there was a twist in my stomach, sharp and unexpected, but it passed. I smiled back, ordered my coffee, and left with something heavier than sadness. Peace. Healing didn't come all at once. It arrived slowly, tucked inside the quiet parts of my routine. Folding laundry in a silent apartment. Waking up without a phone full of meaningless good morning texts. Reclaiming a bed that suddenly felt twice as large and infinitely more mine. Little moments built a life again, steady, unhurried, and fully mine. My friends showed up exactly the way I needed them to. Not with pity, not with gossip, but with presence. Wine nights. Laughter. Long walks where they let me talk, or not talk, about anything at all. Even my parents, who had adored Jason in their own cautious way, never once asked me why or how I managed to walk away from him so completely. They didn't need to. They saw it for what it was, strength. Not the loud kind, but the quiet, rooted kind that stays long after the noise fades. Jason became smaller in my mind every day. Not because I hated him, but because he simply didn't matter anymore. Not to this version of me. Not to the life I was building now. Because whatever game he thought he was playing, he lost the second I remembered who I was without him. Sometimes I wonder if Jason ever tells his version of the story. Maybe in his version, I overreacted. Maybe he spins it as some misunderstanding, a harmless bet blown out of proportion. Maybe he tells people I embarrassed him. I imagine that's easier to say than admitting he lost me long before I walked away. But I don't tell this story to embarrass him. I don't tell it for revenge. I tell it because women need to hear that it's okay to leave. Even at the altar. Even when the world expects you to smile through humiliation. Even when someone tries to turn your life into a game. Especially then. The truth is, walking away from Jason didn't break me. It built me. Piece by piece, in all the ways love is supposed to. But this time, it wasn't about loving someone else. It was about loving the version of me who didn't settle. The version who didn't need to win a man. The version who didn't stay quiet to keep the peace. That girl, she didn't just walk out of a wedding. She walked back into herself. I used to think love was the thing that saved you. But now I know better. Real love doesn't ask you to become small. It doesn't gamble with your heart. It doesn't come with conditions or bets or scoreboards. Real love stays. Real love sees you. Real love doesn't play games. And the best plot twist is when you stop playing too, when you put down the pieces, step away from the table, and choose yourself, fully, loudly, without apology. Jason made a bet. He thought he could charm his way through forever. But me, I didn't need forever with the wrong person. I needed one quiet, powerful moment to remind me exactly who I am. A woman who walks away when staying would mean losing herself. And that's a win he'll never have.
Thanks so much for watching. If you love a good revenge story, or if you've ever dreamed of getting the last word without saying much at all, you're in the right place. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new savage ending. Because around here, karma always hits different.
Chapter 1, RSVP Denied. The joke, if there was one, had started weeks ago, quietly, invisibly. Not in the group chat. Not in some obvious prank thread. It was subtler than that. Grant wasn't in the loop. At first, he chalked it up to wedding logistics. Planning a wedding always seemed to spiral into chaos, and he'd told Vanessa from the beginning that he didn't need to control every detail. She'd taken that to heart, maybe too much. Dates changed without notice. Vendors were booked and unbooked. He'd show up to tastings or meetings only to find they'd been rescheduled. Once, he waited at the florist for 25 minutes before the owner apologized and said the meeting had happened earlier that morning. "Oh," Vanessa had said when he asked about it later. "Talia handled it. We didn't want to bother you." He almost believed her. But then there were the jokes he wasn't part of. Bridesmaids whispering behind hands, laughing at something just after he walked into a room. Vanessa would wave it off, brushing his cheek with her fingers. "They're just excited, babe. You're overthinking it." He wasn't sure he was. The turning point came in the kitchen. A Tuesday night, just past 9. Vanessa was on the phone with Bree, pacing the hallway and sipping wine. Grant walked in from his office, headed to grab a sparkling water from the fridge. As he passed the kitchen island, he noticed the whiteboard leaned against the back wall, wedding notes, color swatches, tentative seating chart scribbles. And in the upper right corner, scrawled in thick marker, "V reveal?" He stood there for a moment, staring. Then, just as casually, Vanessa stepped into the room and, without missing a beat, wiped it clean with her sleeve. "Old idea," she said. "Ignore that." He nodded slowly. Filed it away. Grant didn't mind surprises. He appreciated good timing, clever delivery, even the occasional plot twist. Just not the kind with stage directions and a guest list. Chapter 2, The One Who Slipped. It started with a missing invoice. Grant was reviewing the final numbers for the catering when he realized Vanessa had left her tablet in the living room, screen still on. She was upstairs, taking a shower. The house was quiet except for the dull hum of the dryer running in the guest bathroom. He tapped open the wedding folder. Inside, receipts and vendor forms stacked in organized chaos. He scrolled, searching for the PDF with the final head count. But just before he clicked, a banner flashed across the top of the screen. Talia, we have to record his face OMG. Grant froze. Another message blinked in, switch timing. Front cam on the DJ booth. Dress drop, crying face emoji. He tapped the notification, just fast enough to pull up the thread, a group chat titled Final Countdown, soccer ball emoji. The messages loaded briefly, then collapsed. Vanessa had set the privacy settings to delete previews after viewing. But Grant had seen enough. Stream ready. Surprise moment. He won't even know what hit him. His stomach didn't drop. It calcified. He opened the screenshot tool and backed up what little he could to his own phone, sending the image to a hidden album marked OP7. Then he cleared the search log, closed the file, and set the tablet back on the couch. Vanessa walked in a few seconds later, hair damp, robe loose at the collar. Find it? She asked, nodding toward the tablet. Yeah, he said easily. Thanks. She smiled. Kissed him lightly on the cheek and padded barefoot to the kitchen. Grant watched her go, face unreadable. They always underestimated him. They thought his silence meant trust. It didn't. It meant he was watching. Chapter 3, Behind the Curtain. It was supposed to be casual, just a low-key dinner at Bree's place, bridesmaids only, plus Grant. Vanessa insisted. They want to get to know you better, she said, looping her arm through his. But by the time dessert rolled out, Grant realized the night wasn't about bonding. It was about rehearsing. The jokes came in soft jabs at first. Bree teased him about his perfectly folded napkin. Talia raised her wine glass and made a mock toast, to the most patient groom in the world. You're gonna need it. Everyone laughed. Except Grant. He smiled politely and sipped his water. Vanessa was already tipsy, glowing with the kind of affection that glossed over sharp edges. That's when he noticed the phones. Not out and obvious, but subtle. On the table, camera lens angled just so. Talia snapping selfies and tagging them faster than he could blink. He caught one before it disappeared. Calm before the groom freaks out, skull emoji, nail polish emoji, #wedding humor. Grant excused himself under the guise of checking a work message. In the hallway, he opened the public event Vanessa had created. Dozens of photos. Most harmless. Some. Not. There was one of him adjusting a crooked centerpiece earlier that day. Captioned. He really is the wedding planner, rolling on the floor laughing emoji. Another of him looking slightly confused at the wine pairing event. Big groom energy, when you can't taste the sarcasm. He closed the app. On the way home, the silence filled the car like fog. Vanessa broke it first. Everything okay? Grant kept his eyes on the road. Just wondering if Talia and Bree are going into comedy. She laughed, light and breezy. Talia's just being dramatic. You are super serious, you know. He glanced at her. She was scrolling her phone, not looking up. That was the moment he understood. They weren't hiding it. They just didn't think he'd do anything about it. Grant waited a beat, then pulled the car over just before the light turned green. Vanessa looked up, startled. Everything okay? I'm not trying to be dramatic, he said quietly. But this is my wedding too. I'm standing up there with you, making a lifelong commitment, and sometimes it feels like I'm just a prop. Vanessa blinked. What are you talking about? The jokes. The hashtags. The dinner tonight felt like a dress rehearsal for something I wasn't told about. He paused. I'm not just the guy who shows up in a suit. Her smile was soft but distant. Babe, come on. They're just having fun. You take everything so seriously. Because this is serious, Grant said. Because you matter. And I thought that meant this did too. She reached for his hand, but it felt like a reflex more than reassurance. It's going to be fine. Grant put the car back in gear, eyes steady on the road ahead. He didn't say another word. Chapter 4, The Backup Account. It started with a hunch. Late that night, while Vanessa was upstairs rewatching bridal runway clips in bed, Grant sat downstairs on the couch, laptop open, screen dimmed. The TV played muted highlights from a basketball game he wasn't really watching. There'd been a shared planning app they'd used briefly at the beginning of the engagement. A relic from their more collaborative days, back before Vanessa's bridesmaid planning committee took over. He hadn't opened it in months. He typed in the old credentials. Still active. The interface was clunky, dated, all soft pinks and faux gold icons, but it loaded. And there, nested beneath a folder labeled Talia's Corner, was a linked media drive titled, Bride Tribe Sync Folder. He clicked. Inside, photos, checklists, draft timelines. Then something else. Videos. Roughly edited clips labeled by date, test run, DJ angle, dress demo 2, overlay text mockup. Each one showed the same setup, a staged wardrobe mishap near the dance floor, camera panning to a dummy stand-in, then an overlay with the caption, "When your man malfunctions in real time," smiley face emoji. Grant's fingers tightened around the trackpad. The comment stung more than the footage. Make sure the new dress stays on this time lol. His reaction has to be deadpan, it's funnier that way. Still can't believe he thinks this is just a sparkler exit, smiley face emoji. They weren't just mocking him. They were scripting him, planning how he'd react, how he'd look, how the audience would laugh. No one said Vanessa's name directly. But her username was visible in the reaction list beneath every post. Little pink heart. Liked. Another caption, next to a mock rehearsal clip. Marrying a robot but make it couture, ring emoji. Grant sat still. This wasn't a prank. This was a coordinated ambush, a performance at his expense, choreographed by people who thought he was too stiff, too serious, too predictable to push back. Then, quietly, deliberately, he clicked download all. The progress bar began to fill. Upstairs, laughter echoed from the bedroom as the show continued playing. Grant didn't look up. He just opened a new folder and typed the name, Contingency. Chapter 5, 3 minutes of silence. Grant didn't go straight home. He needed air that didn't smell like rehearsal flowers and cheap champagne samples. So he drove, past the main strip, past the cafe where Vanessa's friends always met before fittings, until the streets grew quieter and the sky deepened to a bluish gray. He pulled over near an overlook that faced nothing remarkable. Just trees. A bench. The kind of place where no one expected anything from you. He set his phone on the dash and opened the folder he'd labeled quietly the night before. Backup _ archive greater than event _ hold greater than final _ sort. Inside, it was worse than he expected. Rehearsal footage. TikTok drafts. A shared planning doc titled, Reveal Timing, Audience Cam Sync. Hashtags floated across the screen like smirks made digital. Hashtag groom. Reacts. Hashtag wedding. Fail. Hashtag stone. Face. Hubby. Hashtag he. Won't. See. It. Coming. One clip was already edited with background music. Vanessa twirled, laughing, while the bridesmaids prepped something just out of frame. A whispered count to 3. Then a burst of movement and a caption freeze frame. POV, he thinks it's a sparkler exit but we're giving him a personality test instead, skull emoji, nail polish emoji. In a separate folder, there were diagrams. Camera placements. Notes like, make sure the new dress stays on this time lol. His reaction has to be deadpan, it's funnier that way. Still can't believe he thinks this is just a sparkler exit, smiley face emoji. Vanessa plays it cool after, just dance with him like nothing happened. In a screen recording, Talia's voice narrated. He's gonna hate it. But that's the point, his face is the joke. Vanessa hadn't posted any of it herself. But her account had liked every clip. Every comment. Every rehearsal note. Grant didn't blink. He didn't curse. He didn't even feel the heat he expected to rise in his chest. Instead, he closed the clip and opened a voice memo. One he hadn't played in a long time. His father's voice crackled through the speakers, calm, thoughtful, recorded just months before the cancer took everything but the words. You don't have to be the loudest one in the room, son. Just the one who walks out with dignity. That's the kind of man you want to be when people stop watching. The file ended. Silence followed. Not heavy. Not hollow. Grant stared at the trees beyond the windshield, where nothing performed for applause. He picked up his phone, tapped the family wedding calendar, and removed his RSVP. Not declined. Deleted. He closed the screen, leaned back in the driver's seat, and sat motionless, for exactly 3 minutes. Not because he was uncertain, but because silence was the only kind of noise that couldn't be edited out. Chapter 6, Redirection Protocol. The invitation arrived the next morning in a group text Grant hadn't asked to be added to. It was titled, Countdown to Chaos, Party Popper Emoji, Ring Emoji, created by Talia, predictably. Vanessa was in it. So were Bree, 2 of the junior bridesmaids, the planner's assistant, and at least one guy Grant didn't recognize. Probably the DJ. He scrolled without reacting. Hey team! Final wedding timeline here, party popper emoji, dinner, sparkler moment, and the big dress drop, 9:30 sharp. DJ knows what to cue, devilish face emoji, dancer emoji. Attached was a PDF labeled Run of Show, V Surprise Final. MP4. It wasn't a ceremony outline. It was a production schedule. Lighting cues. Camera placements. Instagram handles pre-tagged for spontaneous live streams. Grant exhaled once through his nose, not from surprise, but from a kind of mental click. The last piece had just slid into place. This wasn't about fun. Or celebration. It was about content. The wedding wasn't the milestone. His reaction was. He didn't reply. He didn't leave the chat either. He just tapped mute forever and moved it to an archive folder labeled pending opt-out. By noon, he was back in the old wedding planning app, a tool he hadn't opened since Vanessa handed things over to her self-appointed team. Apparently, none of them had bothered to revoke his access. The backend was still active. His account still listed as co-owner. They'd planned the entire thing like a stage play, never thinking the groom might read the script. He spent the next 2 hours inside the system, tracing every camera zone and overlay from the reception layout. Vanessa's dress swap was meant to happen near the dance floor. The DJ booth was angled just far enough that a wide-angle lens could catch his face, his posture, and, if they got lucky, his discomfort. Grant didn't get angry. He made a call. Mason picked up on the third ring, a friend from his undergrad AV club who now freelanced in tech logistics for corporate expos. You owe me dinner, Grant said. You getting married or calling in favors? Both. I need a live relay feed. DJ booth to corner rig. No external cloud. Minimal visibility. You in? You sound like you're planning a hostile takeover. I'm planning a redirect. By 5 p.m., Mason had schematics. Grant had a new plan. They would install a discrete local drive, no streaming, no upload, no trace. The live switch would happen 1 hour before the reception started. It wouldn't disrupt the ceremony, wouldn't trigger any alerts. But if the bridesmaids tried to go viral, they'd be in for a rewrite. This wasn't revenge. It was redirection. Grant didn't need applause. He just needed the mirror turned the right way, long enough for everyone to see who was really performing. And for the first time in days, he smiled. Not because he was amused. Because he was ready. Chapter 7, The Reluctant Ally. The message came through at 10:14 a.m. No emojis. No small talk. Just words. Maya? I don't think this is okay. I wanted you to know. Grant stared at the screen for a moment before typing back. Grant. Is this about Saturday? There was a pause. Then the typing bubble returned. Maya? Yes. Can you meet? I don't want to send this over text. They chose a small cafe 2 neighborhoods over. Neutral territory. No bridal signage or glitter menus. Just chipped mugs and a humming espresso machine. Maya was already there when he arrived, seated at a corner table, sunglasses still on despite the overcast light from the window. She stood when he approached, didn't hug him. Just nodded, lips tight. I don't want to be a part of this anymore, she said. Grant sat quietly. Let her speak. I didn't know how far they were going with it. At first it was just dumb inside jokes, he's so serious, or we need to loosen him up. But then it turned into planning. She paused, pulling out her phone. Talia called it a production. Maya tapped her screen and turned it toward him. A rehearsal shot list. A music cue labeled Q Chaos, Vows Remix. And a caption, already drafted for posting. When your man takes himself too seriously to laugh at love. Vanessa had liked the post. Heart icon glowing. She didn't write it, Maya added quickly, as if it mattered. But she didn't stop it either. Grant's expression didn't change. Why are you telling me this? Because you've been decent, Maya said. And because this isn't. He nodded once. Maya looked down. They're running the prank through the AV booth. DJ's on board. Bridesmaids know their marks. It's all during the vows. Talia wanted maximum contrast. Her words. A long silence stretched between them. Then Grant asked quietly, do you know who's handling the projector feed? Maya's brows lifted. Why? But he didn't answer. Not directly. Instead, he gave a small, practiced smile, the kind people mistake for kindness when it's really calculus. Because if they want a show, he said, I just need to know where to stand. Chapter 8, Technical Rehearsal. The rehearsal started late. Talia blamed the florist. Bree blamed the traffic. Vanessa floated in 20 minutes after the scheduled call time, laughing as if punctuality were optional for the bride. Grant had arrived exactly on time. No one noticed. He moved quietly between rows of folding chairs, phone in hand, pretending to scroll. In reality, he was scanning cables, angles, audio placement. The DJ setup wasn't standard, someone had rented up lighting, lav mics, even a secondary screen for highlight reels. He noted every connection. Talia greeted him last. Hey, serious groom. She chirped, nudging him with her elbow. You ready for your close-up? He smiled, just enough to disarm. Wouldn't miss it. Bree giggled in the background. Can't wait to see that face when the lights hit. Grant turned his head slightly. What lights? Bree blinked. Oh, nothing major. Just, ambience. For the vibe. He let the moment hang for half a second longer than comfortable. Then nodded once and walked toward the AV booth. The tech team barely looked up when he entered. Just 2 guys in polos checking screen resolutions and syncing wireless cues. Grant didn't introduce himself, he just offered 2 iced coffees and a tired smile. Bride's request, he said casually. She wanted me to check something for timing. One of the techs shrugged. Sure. Grant leaned in, watching them load the file queue. One folder was titled, Main Ceremony, Final Run. Inside, 3 segments. Processional plus vows, clean. Sparkler exit plus music cue. Surprise moment, final cut. He didn't open the third? Not yet. Instead, he asked, "Is there time for a final walkthrough? I want to make sure the volume doesn't peak when I'm mic'd." They nodded. Gave him the handheld remote. He tapped once, and felt the room shift under his fingertips. By the time Vanessa reached the altar mock-up, he was already syncing audio levels on his phone's diagnostic app. Talia called out, "No peeking during the dress rehearsal." Grant tilted his head. "I thought that's what this was for." She laughed. "You'll see." He already had. Back in the booth, he waited until the tech stepped out for a call. Then, without flinching, Grant reached into his jacket, pulled out a sleek flash drive, and slid it into the backup port. A mirrored file loaded in seconds, matching the audio length and format. He didn't overwrite the original. He simply changed the order. Surprise moment, Final Cut would still play. But this time, his version came first. Chapter 9, Dress Rehearsal. The rooftop glowed in late golden light, washed in champagne hues and curated perfection. A trio of violinists played acoustic covers of 2000s pop hits near the bar. Tall glass cylinders flickered with candles that weren't real, but no one cared. It was a rehearsal, not a wedding. And everyone was treating it like opening night. Grant arrived precisely on time. He helped Vanessa's father hang the last garland behind the sweetheart table. Smiled for every photo. Clinked glasses when Talia toasted to the most extra bride and the most patient groom in the Western Hemisphere. He was perfect. Because he knew they were watching. Especially Talia. She hadn't stopped smirking since the moment he walked in. "I can't wait for tomorrow," she whispered to Bree when Grant stepped away. "He's gonna lose it. I guarantee it." Vanessa, dressed in off-white linen and heels too tall for her, circled the room like it was already hers. She greeted guests. Kissed cheeks. Took selfies she didn't post. Grant knew she was playing two games, the one for the crowd, and the one where he was the final punchline. He let her. That night, just before everyone left, Grant pulled Vanessa aside. "Hey," he said gently. "Got a second?" They stepped into the venue's empty bridal suite, the room where she'd be getting ready in less than 24 hours. He handed her a folded sheet of heavy cream stationery. "What's this?" she asked. "My vows," he said. "I just wanted you to have a copy. In case I mess them up tomorrow." Her eyes flicked with something unreadable. "You're not going to mess up." "I know," he said with a soft smile. "But I wanted you to hear them once. Just for you." She unfolded the page and scanned the first few lines. Then looked up. "Grant, these are beautiful." "I meant them." Before she could speak again, he kissed her forehead and left. Later, when she returned to their shared suite, she'd find the second copy waiting on her dresser, with a note in his handwriting. For the record. Back on the rooftop, the DJ ran through his final sound check. Talia gave a thumbs up from the bar. Vanessa gave a subtle nod. Across the crowd, Maya lingered in the shadow of the string lights. When Grant glanced her way, she raised her glass slightly. A quiet salute. He nodded back once, barely a movement. Everyone was ready for the switch. So was he. Chapter 10, The Switch. The ceremony was held in a modern event space, all clean angles, floating florals, and a floor-to-ceiling LED wall behind the altar. Not a church. No pews. Just sleek white chairs, a dramatic aisle runner, and a raised platform designed for spectacle. It was the kind of venue where moments were manufactured, not remembered, but replayed. The music cued softly. Guests murmured. Phones were silenced, but anticipation crackled in the air. Bridesmaids began their descent, one by one. Satin dresses in soft champagne hues. Hair curled. Smiles perfectly timed for the photographer station near the aisle. Talia, the maid of honor, walked last, her steps slow, deliberate. As she passed the DJ booth, she gave a quick wink. Her phone, clutched in her palm instead of tucked away, glinted under the chandelier light. It was already recording. Then came Vanessa. She appeared radiant, styled to perfection in a minimalist satin gown. A collective hush fell over the crowd, the kind reserved for fairy tales and headlines. Grant watched her approach. He didn't smile. But he didn't flinch either. At the altar, she reached for his hands. "Ready?" she whispered, beaming. He nodded, just once. The officiant welcomed the guests and launched into the ceremony. Everything moved in rhythm. Vanessa's mother dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Grant's younger cousin filmed a wide shot for relatives watching the live stream. Vanessa's father stood proudly in the front row, one hand resting on the back of his wife's chair. The officiant cleared his throat. "We now come to the part of the ceremony where the couple will share their vows." Vanessa turned toward Grant with theatrical excitement. Grant turned toward her with measured stillness. The officiant gestured for Vanessa to begin. She opened her mouth, but before she could speak, the DJ made his move. A jarring bass-heavy remix dropped like a sonic ambush. Guests startled in their seats. The LED wall flickered. The floral backdrop dissolved, replaced by bold, flashing text. Operation Stoneface, live. Gasps shot through the room. Then came the real reveal. With a whisper of movement, Vanessa's satin gown split along hidden seams, held by magnetic clasps, and fell away to reveal a glitter-drenched bodysuit with sequined fringe and neon feathers. She laughed, threw on a pair of rhinestone sunglasses, and struck a pose. Talia and the other bridesmaids joined her, sunglasses on, stepping into formation. Music blared as they launched into a chaotic, twerk-heavy dance routine. Phones flew into hands. A few guests laughed in disbelief. Many looked horrified. A child asked loudly, "Is this still a wedding?" Grant stood motionless. Then, the LED wall glitched. Music cut. The remix died mid-beat. A new slide appeared in silence. For the record. The crowd shifted, unsure. Some lowered their phones. A soft piano score began to play under Grant's voice, clips overlaid, carefully timed. "I just don't get it, Vanessa. Why are they always laughing when I walk in the room? This wedding matters to me. You matter to me. Do I even matter to you?" Vanessa's voice, clipped from real conversations, floated back, "You overthink everything. It's funny, babe. You're too serious. It's not that deep." A series of clips followed. Vanessa laughing dismissively. Grant asking again and again why the group chat excluded him, why the events kept changing. A video of Talia at a rehearsal dinner, leaning into Bree's shoulder, "He's gonna lose it. That's the whole point." Another clip. Grant standing in their kitchen weeks earlier, voice calm but exhausted. "I'm not trying to kill the mood. I'm trying to start a life with you. That's what this is supposed to be. Isn't it?" Vanessa's voice, light, mocking. "You're always so serious. It's just for fun, babe." Then, a draft post from the planning group, captioned, "When your man takes himself too seriously to laugh at love." Then, text messages from Grant to Vanessa, expressing confusion and asking to be included. Her responses were short. Detached. Then, a final video clip. Grant, sitting at their kitchen table weeks earlier, quietly asking, "Do you even see me? Or am I just a character in your content?" Vanessa's recorded reply, a shrug, a dismissive sip of wine, and, "Babe, you're being so dramatic." Talia on a couch, holding a drink, saying directly to camera, "I kinda hope he leaves her. Honestly? She used to be fun before he came along." The final clip hit like a gavel. Grant again. Eyes exhausted, voice steady, "Do I even matter to you?" Vanessa not even bothering to answer, waving him off, barely looking up from her phone. The slideshow ended. The screen faded. Silence spread like a stain. And in that suspended breath, the crowd turned. Vanessa's mother sat frozen, lips parted in stunned disbelief. Her father's jaw was tight, hands now clenched. Grant's parents looked heartbroken. An aunt in the second row whispered, "Oh my God." Talia adjusted her sunglasses, lips twitching into a smug grin. Vanessa didn't move. Her glitter bodysuit sparkled under the overhead lights, but her confidence drained by the second. The silence pressed in. Her sunglasses now felt absurd, a shield-turned spotlight. Slowly, she pulled them off. Talia didn't move. Her arms were crossed. Smug. Satisfied. Almost proud. Grant took one step forward. Then another. He didn't look at Vanessa. He addressed the room. "I came here to start a life with someone I loved. Someone I thought loved me back. But to Vanessa, I wasn't a partner. I was a punchline. A prop in a viral stunt she was willing to risk everything for, including this marriage." He paused. Looked directly at her glittered figure. "Did you really think that there was any way I'd go through with vows after that? What did you really expect to happen after making such a mockery of me in this wedding? Did you expect me to willingly enter a marriage with a woman who has such glaring disdain for me and my feelings?" A stunned murmur passed through the crowd. "I hope you got the viral video you were looking for. I hope this was all worth it. Your best friend seems happy with the outcome." Grant gestured at Talia without bothering to glance at her, but Talia's smug expression never wavered. "I'm not angry. Just done. So this is the part where I walk away." He stepped off the altar platform, adjusted his cufflinks, and started down the aisle. His groomsmen, all 6, followed him in silent solidarity. Behind him, the LED screen lit up one final time. "The wedding has been cancelled." The guests began to murmur and stand. Some moved toward the exits. A few comforted Grant's mother, who'd started to cry. Vanessa reached out toward Maya. "Wait, Maya, where are you going?" Maya, the only bridesmaid not in sunglasses, paused at the aisle's edge. She didn't raise her voice. She just looked at her, calm, clear. "You don't humiliate someone who loved you. You just don't. One day you will seriously regret the future you could have had because you got too big for your ego." Then she shook her head, turned and walked after the groomsmen, heels tapping with purpose, shoulders high. Talia, still near the altar, stood stunned. Still the smugness and glow of contentment didn't leave her face. Not until the entire room turned on them. And the fairy tale became a real-life nightmare. Chapter 11, The Guest List Shrinks. The aftermath didn't explode. It decayed. The guests didn't scream. They whispered. Shifted. Slipped out row by row like quiet witnesses to something private, something too painful to watch unfold. Grant and his groomsmen were gone, suits moving in perfect formation as they left through the side doors without fanfare. No music followed. Just the hush of disbelief and heels clicking on tile. Vanessa stood frozen beneath the LED wall, her bodysuit still shimmering, now an echo of something that had no place here. Her dress pooled around her feet like a memory. Her hands, still holding the useless sunglasses, trembled just slightly. The guests remained seated for a few seconds longer, unsure if this was still part of the show. It wasn't. Then they started to rise. Some filtered into the foyer quietly. Others whispered furiously in the back rows. Grant's aunt dabbed her eyes and shook her head. He held it together so well, she said to her husband, who simply responded, he had no choice. A group of Grant's cousins stood near the exit, arms crossed, eyes locked on Vanessa with thin-lipped disgust. I can't believe she really thought this was funny, one of them said. Vanessa's parents hadn't moved. Her mother sat stiffly, eyes glassy and hands folded so tightly in her lap they'd gone white. Her father was stone still, face unreadable, the kind of stillness that came from total disbelief. Is this really what you planned? Her mother finally asked, not accusatory, just broken. Vanessa turned to her, but the words didn't come. From the back, a groomsman's sister, not close to the family, but just loud enough, muttered, "She got her moment. Let's see how she edits this for TikTok." Talia was still on the platform, near the altar. The sunglasses were gone now. Her arms folded. Her smirk flickered once as the whispers rose, but didn't vanish. Not yet. She held onto it like armor. But her glow was dimming. A few people turned toward her with narrowed eyes. Someone near the aisle muttered, "That's the one who made the video." Another voice chimed in, "She's the maid of honor?" More like the lead saboteur. Someone from the venue staff walked over and asked, gently but firmly, if they'd like help removing the DJ's equipment. Vanessa finally stepped off the platform, still barefoot. She didn't look for her friends. She scanned the guests, as if trying to measure how much of her world had just walked out the door. Near the exit, a woman held up her phone and muttered, "Already has 1,000,000 views. It's all over." Talia caught that. Her posture straightened again, defiant. "Good," she said under her breath, half smiling. But no one high-fived her. No one cheered. Someone near the back gave her a look that made her turn away. As the room emptied, Vanessa looked again for Maya. But Maya was gone, the last to follow the groomsmen down the aisle with quiet, dignified grace. No farewell. No backward glance. Vanessa was alone in a glittered costume, at what used to be her wedding. The fairy tale hadn't just ended. It had turned on her, and kept rolling without her. And no one rushed to help her pick up the pieces. Chapter 12, What You Didn't See. Tone, fallout. The aftermath unravels online and off. The ceremony may have ended in silence, but the internet erupted in sound. By the time Vanessa slipped out of her rhinestone bodysuit and into the bridal suite's shadows, the footage was already live, in 7 different angles. TikTok didn't hesitate. "This man is my hero." The level of petty is elite. Imagine getting dumped mid-vows with receipts. Vanessa's face when the screen flipped? "I felt that." Not the glitter chicken suit, crying face emoji, crying face emoji, crying face emoji. Somewhere, a therapist just got their next case study. The hashtags trended by midnight, hashtag groom gone ghost, hashtag Operation Stoneface, hashtag cancelled with cufflinks, hashtag that wedding. Talia's account, once curated to perfection, was bombarded. At first, she doubled down, reposting memes, calling it just a joke, blaming Grant for not knowing how to laugh at life. But the comments turned sharp. Unrelenting. You tried to humiliate someone for clout. You weaponized the wedding, and got wrecked. Your sunglasses didn't block the karma, sis. By morning, her account was deleted. Bree issued a Notes app apology on Instagram, "We didn't mean to hurt anyone. It was supposed to be fun." I see now it wasn't. Vanessa tried to fight back. She posted a glossy selfie. Caption, "Some stories only show one side." But even her own followers weren't buying it. "Girl. We saw the clips. You laughed while he begged you to take it seriously. You lost a husband for a hashtag. Meanwhile, Grant said nothing. No comment. No post. He didn't retweet the clips. Didn't like the fan edits. His account went dark, no new activity since the day before the wedding. He became a symbol. A cautionary tale. A quiet king in a world of chaos. And just when it seemed the internet had moved on, a final video surfaced. Posted anonymously to Reddit. It was raw. Grainy. Shot from behind a partition, clearly on Maya's phone. Grant, alone in a hallway moments before the ceremony. He adjusted his cufflinks, straightened his tie. Then looked into the lens and said, calm and clear, "Showtime." Fade to black. Chapter 13, The Dress That Stayed Down. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Vanessa sat on the edge of the tufted bench at the foot of her bed, still wearing the robe she'd changed into hours earlier, though it could have been days. She'd stopped tracking time once the group chats turned toxic and the live stream was clipped for Reddit. Her notifications were a war zone. Bridesmaid cringe of the century. Not even funny, just mean. I hope he sues FR. She hadn't left the house since the wedding. Not that anyone had called to check on her. Well, except her parents. That knock came late Sunday night. Her father didn't say anything at first. Just stood there in the foyer, arms folded, staring at the half-packed boxes of party favors and unused seating cards. Her mother broke the silence. Was any of it real, Vanessa? Vanessa blinked. What do you mean? Her mother's voice cracked. The planning. The promises. The tears in my kitchen when you told me he was the love of your life. He was, Vanessa said softly. I mean, he is. Or, he was supposed to be. Her father stepped forward, eyes hard. You humiliated him. In front of us. In front of everyone. I didn't, Vanessa started, then faltered. I didn't plan it like that. It wasn't supposed to be. What? He cut in. Public? Permanent? She tried to explain. That it started as a joke. That Talia thought it would be a funny contrast. That it was just a harmless surprise, a twist to shake things up. He's so serious, she murmured. He never laughed with us. Her mother's voice was ice. He didn't need to laugh, Vanessa. He needed to feel respected. Vanessa didn't respond. She couldn't. Her father left without another word. Her mother followed, pausing only to say, You broke something real. For clout. I hope it was worth it. The door clicked shut behind them. Later that night, the doorbell rang again. Talia. Still in party makeup, though her lashes were uneven and her lipstick was worn off. She breezed in like nothing had happened. Girl. They are dragging us. My TikTok is basically a crime scene. Vanessa didn't answer. She just stared. Talia blinked. What? You ruined my wedding. Talia scoffed. You approved the plan, remember? You liked the final version. You said it was fine. I didn't know he was going to walk out. You didn't care if he did, Talia shot back. Be honest. You were over it. You didn't want to marry someone who made you feel boring. Vanessa flinched. Talia crossed her arms. You loved the attention. You loved the planning. The followers. The press inquiries. Don't act brand new. You told me it would be funny, Vanessa snapped. You said it would trend. And it did. Not my fault you are not enjoying the results of your actions. If it had been me, I never would have risked my marriage for a few likes. You never deserved him anyway. Talia said, grabbing her clutch from the counter. Enjoy the viral fame. I'm out. Vanessa didn't stop her. She couldn't. The door closed. Again. The next morning, a package arrived. No return label. Inside, her original gown. Cleaned. Pressed. Folded with precision. Tucked into the fabric was a note, handwritten. This would have been the one. But you wanted a costume party? Gee. She held the dress to her chest, as if it might soften the ache. It didn't. She sat there a long time. Phone in hand. Eyes glazed. Her bridesmaids weren't replying. Grant was gone. Maya had blocked her. And the only thing that still answered was the algorithm. She opened Instagram. And watched the moment again. The music. The sparkle. The joke. The man who never once looked back. Epilogue, RSVP not required. The auditorium was sleek, understated, rows of executives, industry leaders, and rising professionals seated in quiet anticipation. A corporate leadership summit. Keynote, Emotional intelligence in high conflict environments. Grant adjusted his collar backstage. He wasn't nervous. Just ready. When he stepped out, the applause was respectful. Polite. Most of them didn't recognize him from the video. The one that had gone viral in 1,000 different formats, stitched, subtitled, dissected. But a few did. They nodded. One man even stood. Grant smiled slightly. Clicked the remote. Behind him, a blank slide. No videos. No charts. Just this: never stay where you're only valued for staying. A pause. Then he continued. Some people think composure is weakness. That silence is softness. But quiet is where the real decisions are made. He clicked again. New slide, a single word in white on black. Dignity. I didn't storm out. I didn't shout. I left with my integrity intact, because leadership isn't just about how you act when you're respected. It's how you respond when you're not. After the session, a few attendees approached, including two of his company's senior partners, both of whom had attended the wedding as distant guests of his parents. One clapped him on the shoulder. Hell of a thing, what you did. Took guts. And grace. Most people would have burned the place down, the other added. Grant just nodded. He didn't need to burn anything. The truth had done that already. That night, he opened his personal inbox, the one few people had access to. A message sat there. Unread. Sent from a backup email address. The subject line, "You were never the joke." It was from Talia. Her message was long. Rambling? Conflicted. She wrote that she never meant for it to go that far. That Vanessa had stopped listening. That Grant's seriousness always got under her skin. That maybe, deep down, it was jealousy. I hated how much you grounded her. How safe she felt with you. And I couldn't stand watching her waste it. Then the line he didn't expect. I think I loved you. That's probably why I sabotaged it. You were never supposed to end up with her. You were supposed to see me. He didn't respond. He archived the message. Closed the browser. Turned off the light. Vanessa's final status. 3 months later, a wedding vendor tagged Vanessa in a photo, not realizing the full context. Comments poured in. Not kind ones. She'd gone silent on most social media. Deleted her joined accounts. Tried to rebrand, quietly. But screenshots lived forever. And so did questions she couldn't quite answer. Her parents moved back to North Carolina. Her father no longer mentioned her engagement in conversation. Her mother returned the boxed bridal portrait without a word. Vanessa never issued a formal statement. She never wore the bodysuit again. Call back to Maya. At a different panel 2 weeks later, Grant noticed a familiar face in the audience. Maya? Afterward, she came up to him, calm, confident, composed. I just wanted to say. I meant what I said that day. He smiled. I know you did. They didn't talk about the wedding. They didn't need to. Some things don't need a viral caption. Just two people, choosing dignity, and walking away with their heads high.
Thanks so much for watching. If you love a good revenge story, or if you've ever dreamed of getting the last word without saying much at all, you're in the right place. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new savage ending. Because around here, karma always hits different.
Love doesn't always win. But karma always shows up on time. Hit subscribe and check out the playlist for more stories that hit harder than a runaway bouquet. Because it's savage endings, every betrayal comes with a twist. See you in the next reckoning.